Hello students, welcome to the lecture series on resource geography in massive open online course under SWAYAM. Today I'll deliver lecture on approaches to resource utilization, which is in module 4. Before going to the main topic, I should discuss what is resource. To you, anything that you buy or pay for, you consider that as resource. But in resource geography, that is not considered as resource until and unless it is functionable, readily functionable. For example, you have your smartphone in your hand, you are working with your smartphone, serving for education, recreation, games, etc. But all on a sudden, your battery becomes inoperative. What will be then? Your smartphone will not be working. That is, you are getting no more functions from that smartphone. That is why it is not fulfilling your requirement, then it is not resource. So, whenever this smartphone is fulfilling your requirement, then only that smartphone is resource. The definition that E.W. Zimmerman, Professor Zimmerman, a famous economist and resource geographer, given, that is, a thing or a substance is not resource, but the functionability of a thing or a substance is resource. So you understand that functionability is most important for any object to be considered as resource. I am going to the main topic, approaches to resource utilization. Resource approaches denote the series of activities from collection of primary goods from nature, transportation to the processing center, then to the consumers, and after consumer, it is thrown to the nature or disposed of. All these things involve human actions and human labor that is based upon natural resource availability. And a resource is created only when nature, man and culture interacts. Now, natural elements of nature. What is this natural elements of nature? Anything that we obtain from nature is considered as neutral element. As I earlier said, Professor Zimmerman's definition that no object is a resource until and unless it is functional. In nature, you see land, forest, water, soil, minerals. These are all neutral elements. These become resource only when natural resources or natural elements, that is neutral elements, are in utility for the benefit of mankind. Then man approaches with his labor, its technology, tools, knowledge. So, nature, man and culture interacts to fulfill human demand, that is, to attain functional capacity. Now, let us consider this collection, processing, consumption, disposal as the main issues dealing with resource utilization. Resource utilization requires effective use, efficient use, and economical use. How? If you get a natural element as resource functionable to be made, you have to deal with it effectively so that this resource is getting its optimum value. That is, human requirement is met maximum with minimum raw material so that nature is saved, nature is protected. That requires efficient use of the resource, efficient use of technology, efficient use of manpower. Another thing, if it is economical to use any particular natural element to make it functional, then only it is feasible for use. Otherwise, if it is very costly, it may not be considered as a resource, because the cost of production, if goes beyond capacity of the buyers, that will not be sold to the market. So it has to be economical so that people can buy and use. You see, take cultivable land. For example, a land is a neutral element, but when that land becomes productive, for example, yielding crops, or a factory is established to have manufacturing products to fulfill human demand, then the land becomes a resource. So land should be utilized for the benefit of mankind. Maybe for agriculture, maybe for settlement, maybe for industry or transport. Forest, you see, forest is of great value, not only economical value but environmental value. Forest absorbs carbon dioxide, releases oxygen. So we are living in this earth. This earth becomes livable because of carbon-oxygen balance. Now, forest is also economically used by cutting trees and getting forest products. But if that is not possible, if that forest is in a very remote, inaccessible location, then people cannot venture into that forest to get forest resource. So that forest resource is not being directly used by mankind, and that is not considered a resource because that is of no economical value. However, one thing to be remembered, that in case of forest, it has environmental value. So it may also be considered a resource because of its environmental value. We have aquatic bodies, and this aquatic body is meant for fishing, navigation, and also for drinking purposes, and wetlands are also protecting our environment. So these water bodies are beneficial for mankind in environmental aspect, and when water is concerned, that is also used by mankind. Without water, we cannot live. So this water, when we get for our functional purposes, then that water body becomes a resource. Minerals, we have mines, but not all mines are operational. Why? Because some mines are economically exploitable, some mines are not. Deep under the earth, we see coal seams. Deep under the earth, we see petroleum. But not all coal fields, not all oil fields are economically exploitable. When they are economically exploitable, people engaged in production for our functional purposes. When industry grows, when it gets raw materials from agricultural raw materials, forest raw materials, fishing raw materials, minerals, the industry develops for manufacturing purposes of products that we use for our daily use or for commercial purposes, then only manufacturing is done. Otherwise, it is not possible for getting these raw materials transformed into industrial products. Transport is another thing. It's an important issue. Without transport, civilization will stop because it is the wheel of civilization. Transporting raw materials to the industries, industrial products to the consumers require transportation system. So resource utilization involves transportation very much for making any product functionable. So all this help in resource utilization to progress for our benefit and for the sake of progress of civilization. one thing to be remembered, resources are obtained from nature, but can you get these resources for good? No resource is perpetual. We have to conserve it. We have to protect our nature. And resource development by protecting nature is known as sustainable development. That is, sustainable use of resources involves both economical extraction as well as environmental protection. And protection of natural systems mean we should not destroy our water bodies, we should not destroy our forests, because these are not only of environmental value, physical environmental value, but of biotic environmental value, because forest, water bodies, they do give shelter to animals, fish, birds, water bodies shelter or give life to fish and other aquatic animals, and forests provide shelter to birds, animals, and also they shelter to the primitive people. Many tribal people live in forest, and based on the forest resources, they have their livelihood pattern. So conservation of this water, forest, aquatic bodies is very much essential for us, for our civilization, for our economic value. And minerals, when these minerals will be utilized? Only when men will evaluate, that is, men will think that this utilization will be not only beneficial but also of economic value. So that extraction is economical and the amount of reserve is enough to start with the production system. Otherwise, if it is finished within a short period of time, that will not be beneficial, economical at all. So, implementation of conservation laws, another important thing, that always we do not obey rules. We often cut forest, we often throw wastages everywhere, but if there are conservation laws regarding protection of water bodies, wetlands, forests, then only our resources will have a longer life that will fulfill our demand as well as fulfill the demand of our future generations. That is very important when resource utilization is concerned. For this, community-based adaptation is most important. What is that? It is in short form, abbreviated form, CBA, community-based adaptation. It involves participation, empowerment, inclusivity, flexibility, PEK or people's ecological knowledge. Participation of community is beneficial for any resource activity. For example, for the protection of forest or utilization of forest, we have known that joint forest management or participatory forest management has become very successful. It started from Arabari in West Medinipur and it has its presence now all over India, and some foreign countries are also following this type of participatory forest management where people are involved. And what is the use? When people are involved, that is villagers or community people are involved, then they get job and they are always alert that there is no poaching, there is no illegal forest cutting, because people are surrounding the forest area, they are living in the forest area, and so they can well protect forest better than the forest guards, because they are always alert, because that is ensuring their livelihood by providing job and forest products. Empowerment. This is again important. Empowering local people, particularly women, will have great benefit. Again, I am taking example of forest. If a woman is entrusted with the protection of 100 trees. Women consider this as her children, and they nourish and they protect those trees. And out of 100 trees, most trees will survive because women are considered very careful, very nurturing, and very much well adapted with the situation of environmental protection. Inclusivity. What is inclusivity? That is engagement of youth, women, and marginalized people who often felt neglected, and those people are taken into account so that they participate in resource utilization practices. Flexibility. This is important because situation may change. Whenever we are doing collecting forest products, all of a sudden there is a forest fire. So you have to not only protect the forest, but also adapt yourself with the changing situation. In areas where there are sudden landslides, the economic activity or resource utilization practice should deal with the landslides and change the purpose of the resource utilization work, change the mode of operation, and to safeguard the people, to safeguard the villagers, and also to protect the environment. So flexibility is important because you cannot stick to a certain working procedure. You have to adapt with the changing situation so that resource utilization will be meaningful. PEK, that is people's ecological knowledge. This is important because if outside people goes to an ecosystem, they are not very much accustomed to that ecosystem. What the local people know, outside people do not know. Local people are aware of their land, their water bodies, the birds coming, the animals are roaming. So everything they know. And also the ecosystem, they know very much from their earlyhood because they are born and brought up in that ecosystem. But when planners come, they should be in contact with the local people, that they take their knowledge. Otherwise, anything imposed upon the ecosystem from outside will not give fruitful result. So resource utilization must be in accompaniment with people's ecological knowledge. You see, environment, society, and economics. When these are all taken into account during resource utilization, sustainability is maintained, that is, environment is protected as well as resource utilization is going on. For this, technological approach is most important. Nowadays, we have many technological tools, advanced technological tools. We can monitor and analyze data scientifically. GIS, or Geographical Information System, remote sensing data we use, large quantities of data sets we may use through AI, artificial intelligence, and automation has not actually replaced human beings, but automation is accompanying human beings for any productive activity, for any kind of resource utilization. For example, precision agriculture. Precision agriculture, if you adopt, you can use minimum water to maximize plant requirement, plant growth, without wasting water. Now, for many countries are adopting genetically modified species. It is also debated whether it is at all good for environment, but it is having economical benefit because profit maximization has drawn genetically modified crops for utilization. If you do not opt for genetically modified organisms, but you can go for organic farming. You can use natural substances as fertilizer, biofertilizer, as biopesticides, etc. So, precision agriculture not only give perfection of production, but also protect environment. Digital governance or e-governance, through which government or administrative machinery can monitor resource utilization, any malpractices going on, any destructive works are going on in the environment. So, digital governance is an important tool for resource utilization practices to get maximum benefit from our resources. And green technology is another option. Green technology means the technology used, it has to be seen that it does not cause harm to the environment. So green technology, one example is green energy. That is, you opt for alternate energy sources without burning coal or petroleum that cause harm to the environment. And green technology also involves green accounting. That is, whether you have done any harm to the environment, that will be taken into account, and preventive measures will be taken for further utilization of that particular resource. Maybe it land utilization, maybe it water body utilization, maybe it forest resource utilization. Behavioral approach, individual decision making. Individual decision making, people may opt for a particular resource, may not opt for that resource. If he decides that this resource will be of use to him, maximize his demand, fulfill his demand, then they will opt for that resource. Otherwise, he won't go for that resource because he has to put his labor, he has to put his knowledge, he has to put his capital. So, individual decision also influence resource utilization. Human dimensions. This includes not only individuals, but also organizations and institutions. Whenever any organizational approach is there for resource utilization by the input of capital, by the input of government machinery or industrial machinery, then resource utilization is of better use, because organizational approach has any structural importance, because labor force utilization, capital utilization, and at the same time environmental protection, if done in an organized way, that will be very much beneficial not only for economy but also for environment. Application across fields. So this behavioral approach, individual, organizational, institutional, is having its impact across different resource fields. The fields of forest utilization, the field of water body utilization, the field of mineral utilization. So, behavioral approach, that is how individual thinks, how organization feel and decide what to do, what to do, when to do, that is very important, and that has impact, great impact on resource utilization. Resource utilization is done with the help of human being, his knowledge based upon the natural resources availability. Whenever people consider that this kind of resource will be of benefit to the particular community, the particular institution, the particular industry, then only these natural resources are extracted for utilization for transformation, for consumption. And these resources are naturally as a result of interaction of nature, man and culture. So resource utilization depends on the interaction of nature, man and culture, how, where and when these resources would be utilized. That is, these three issues, nature, man and culture. Without man, natural resource utilization is not possible. Without knowledge, natural resource utilization is not very much possible, because only labor, you see, when knowledge or technology was not there, people are hunters, food gatherers. But when technology, even primitive technology came, then people started to cultivate land and get crops. And civilization started with the advent of agricultural technology indeed, though primitive technology. Now we have improved technology, very advanced technology, scientific tools for harnessing resources. So this is very important, how nature, man and culture interacts. And another thing, this interaction must obey with the rule of environmental protection. Without environmental protection, what happens? Now we can get resources, we can fulfill our demand, but what is about our future generations? So sustainability is very much important for resource utilization for the present and also for future generations. So my students, I think by this time you have an appreciable idea about what is resource, what are the fields of resource, and how resource utilization should be there with the help of nature, man and culture, and also how to conserve resource not only for present utilization but also for future utilization. And you are grown-up people and you should think about resource, you should think about conservation side by side, otherwise it won't fulfill your purpose of saving our environment for us and also for our future or for the posterity. Now, you have to take into account all the points I have discussed, keeping in mind from resource utilization, starting from nature, then man, then culture, and you will be able to understand not only resource but also environment, and you will be a learned citizen of our country. Thank you.